Alright. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatay Hawa, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is They Have an Agenda. Now what you're looking at in front of you is pretty much a fair use notice that the material that I'm about to use for this lesson is not intended for any monetary gain, just for educational purposes, and this is the way you could do it. We'll see how it goes. But I want to start off by playing a little clip from this video from this guy named John Todd, which he had something called the John Todd Confession Tapes. And pretty much in those tapes, he pretty much laid out a world plan that the international bankers have for the world, this so-called New World Order agenda that they're pushing. And you see it coming to fruition right now. And what he was speaking about, and keep in mind this was back in the 70s, and what he's speaking about we can pretty much see happening right now. Now, there was one part that I was trying to find, I haven't found yet, where he pretty much said that the reason why they want to, what they want to do is they want to bankrupt the world economically, but still be so rich that they can withstand it. Because pretty much what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the whole world, to pretty much be subjects and servants to them. And this is why they're rolling out this mark of the beast, which he said back then he didn't know what it was, but we know now what it is. And I'll play a clip from that also. But let's get to it.
It's because we have welfare. They didn't have welfare back then. This country's worse than it was in the 30s and the late 20s. Now, all I can tell you is this, that in Atlas Shrugged, their code book for world takeover, they destroyed the coal mines. First they destroyed the oil, then when all the electric companies started switching over to generators run by coal, then they destroyed the coal. They plan on shutting the city completely off from everything: fuel, electricity, gasoline, and food. I'm going to close with this. I'm sorry I couldn't handle all of them. It's just there's too many. I'm sorry. Don't lynch me for it. I want to close with this. I felt very, very neat and very important. And that's this. They're going to make a strike happen. Now I want to say something. When this takes place, it'll be too late to go to retreat. They're going to cause a mass strike across the United States of the Teamsters. No trucks will move. Nothing will be shipped by trucks in the United States for close to a year. During that year, or almost as long, nothing will be unloaded by ships because longshoremen will go on strike. No airplanes will fly, not just because the pilots went on strike, but the air controllers went on strike. Only military planes will be in the air. Nothing will go by rail because, and you can watch for this, the bridges over the railroad tracks are going to start crumpling under the trains being blown up. More trains are going to be derailed to the point that whole towns are going to be wiped out by poisonous gases and explosions. They're picking these trains. It's already been proven. The one that killed so many people with chlorine gas down south was picked. They let the train hauling nothing go over just before it, and then they derailed this one. They know what is being shipped by trains and what's on the trains, because they own the trains. Nothing is going to move. Now you ask yourself a question. If nothing is brought into the city from outside by shipping to the grocery stores, what are you going to buy in the grocery stores? You're not. Even if the farmers go ahead and plant and don't go on strike, it doesn't really matter, because there'll be no way to get the food to the grocery store. Now, if you don't think that's possible, you stop and think of all the small strikes that happened that paralyzed us in a little way. I can remember when nothing got unloaded by the...
All right, so you pretty much heard him. He said he's thinking about they're planning on shutting everything down, food, everything, the trucks coming in, the ships, coming to the shores, and you pretty much seeing that happening right now, and it's spreading, because now you remember going to the supermarket and to the grocery stores, and the shelves are always packed, very rare you see a shelf that was empty. Now you go to the stores and you see shelves empty of stuff, and it really hasn't hit these people yet, but once it does, that's when panic is going to set in, and they're going to go nuts buying every little bit of everything that they can find, and pretty much, that's going to cause, a super rationing from the government, and one thing that the government counts on is people being dependent on them for everything, and this is what they want, so when they know that hunger is a motivator, fear is a motivator, thirst is a motivator, so when they have these things over the people, most people are going to give in to whatever demands that they bring out on the table, because they're going to want to eat, they're going to want to drink, they want things to go back to normal, they want peace, they want there to be peace and things to go back the way they were, but they're not going back to the way they were, and even if this whole situation that we're going through dies down, the effects are there, and their agenda is pushed forward, because now in China, supposedly they're getting back to normal life. Their businesses are opening back up slowly but surely. They're getting the cobwebs out, so to speak. But now when people go and buy stuff, they first have to be scanned to see if they have fevers. Then when they go to buy the food, they got a bracelet that everybody has now that they have to scan, when they're buying, and they were rolling out. I was watching this video. I didn't finish watching it. They were rolling out pretty much a digital currency out in China, to where you didn't have to handle cash. So on all levels, we see these things being planned out. Remember, this was back in the 70s when this guy was speaking about this. So the technology in the 70s wasn't as advanced as now. So that and there was another video that he had, that the people were asking him about the 666 mark, and he said he wasn't sure how they were going to make that happen. Well, we know how it's going to happen, through the Spirit, from the scriptures, and from the mouth of Aaron Russo himself, and other information that we have, that they plan on microchipping everybody, which that microchip is the mark of the beast. So let's take a quick listen to this.
Right, and the whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is getting me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything.
you sell.
Everything is in there, And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people. And you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intent.
And now you heard him. You become a serf to these people, and that's their goals. Because that's pretty much what they want, and that's what the mark of the beast is. The mark of the beast is nothing more than an instrument used for to create a permanent slave. Exodus 21:6. Matter of fact, let's go to this. Exodus chapter 21, verse 1. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them, and you best believe that they know these scriptures. They know about these. They have their scholars that study these scriptures, and they use the scriptures to their benefit. But they don't really use the scriptures for judgment and for justice and for truth. It says, if thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and the children shall be her masters, and he shall go out by himself. And this is pretty much what this society is about, because once you're born, your mother, our mothers, pretty much, our fathers too, because, some of our fathers had signed the birth certificate, but it begins with the mother. Signed the children into pretty much into slavery by signing that birth certificate. It says, and if thy servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free. And this is pretty much the sentiment that a lot of these jakes are going to have, because they love Esau anyway. So they'll be willing to take whatever Esau gives them, as far as, whatever device they got to take in order for them to be able to continually receive these benefits that Esau is going to give. It says, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Hey, Salaki for a minute. All right, Salaki, I had to take that call real quick. So it says, and his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him what? Forever. And these devils know that. They're looking for servants, perpetual service. And once you're branded, you're their servant forever. That is your God forever, until you perish, until you die. All right, let's look up the word all. Let's see, I want to look up two words here. All, which is maratazai, all boring instrument. Okay, and then when you type in a bore, I believe it looks like an ice pick. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, pretty much it looks like an ice pick, as you can see there. That's an awl. And they would bore his ear through, and that would make him a permanent slave. Now, the word bore is from the Hebrew word ratazai, which means to bore, pierce of the ear. So something to pierce. And we know that doing the research with the mark of the beast, the microchip, that you have to pierce the flesh in order to insert that mark of the beast, which is the microchip. So that's what was done with the all in the past in order to pretty much make that particular individual your servant forever. And that was a sign that this is your slave. Just like you would brand cattle or whatever the case is, horses, that was a sign of who the master is. And once people take this microchip, which is the modern day all, they're pretty much submitting to having Esau to be their master forever, and pushing the Most High out of the way, which Jake does anyway. They push the Most High out of the way anyway. So now when we go to Leviticus 19 and 28, you shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord. And when you look up this word mark here in the Hebrew, because you got to go to the origins of the language in order to understand what this word is, you have the Hebrew word kwai. And the Hebrew word kwai is incision, imprintment, tattoo, mark. But we're dealing with the part of an incision, because a tattoo could also be done. But an incision and imprintment, that's what cutting into the flesh. Or as we read about the all, a piercing. Why? Because those piercings were representative of you being a servant to someone. And that and technically we are the servants of the Most High, of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, because he purchased us. He redeemed us. Just like if you have a slave and you sell a slave and the master buys a slave, he actually paid money for that slave, and now that slave belongs to him because he redeemed that slave to himself. So the Lord redeemed us to him when he brought us out of the land of Egypt. He brought our forefathers out of the land of Egypt. So we were redeemed unto our power. So he is our God. He is our power. But when we, if we go and deal with Esau, then that makes Esau our God. And we know that can't happen. So we know that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is our power. So Jake out there, a lot of them are going to take this mark. They're going to get pierced with that mark. They're going to get that imprintment, that incision, by that mark. A stigma, a mark branded on the skin. It says Leviticus 19:28. And this word stigma, pretty much, matter of fact, let's go to that real quick. Let's go to the book of Galatians. And I got to split in a minute. So, Lord's will, I could either do another lesson or continue this lesson a little later. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 17. From henceforth let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Yahushai. Now these marks were actual. When we go back into the book of St. John and others, that they pierced the Lord. And that's why he told Thomas to put his finger into those marks, into those holes. Why? Because, to prove to him that he was Yahushua. So those are actual holes that Yahushua had in him from the nails that were put into his hands, his feet, and also in his side, where he was actually, his side was pierced with a spear. So when we look up this word marks, right, it brings us to the Greek word stigma. And when we read it here, it actually says, where is it? It actually says stigmata here, which is stigma, right? Which goes from a primary stizo, to stick, an example, prick, which we read about what? The piercing of that awl, or the mark, the kwai, the incision, all right? So stigma is a mark pricked in or branded upon the body. In this case, is pricked in by what? By that awl, which today would be what? That the needle used to deliver the microchip, which is the mark of the beast. It says, to ancient Oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bore the name or the stamp of their master or commander, branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to. So this is pretty much what's happening now, because Esau wants permanent slaves. And this is why this is happening. This is why he's pushing so hard for this mark of the beast, or this microchip, to be implemented. It says, and there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with the token of their God. So pretty much, that's what they planning on doing. Going back to the law of the awl and the word to bore, which is to pierce. All right? Because we looked at the word awl and we looked at the word bore, and they pretty much, are synonymous with each other. They're pretty much synonymous with each other, and they pretty much, because the word for bore is ratazai, which means to bore or pierce, and the word awl means ma ratazai, mean of or from piercing, the instrument used to do the piercing. Just like you have the word rakab, which is ride, and marakab, which is chariot, is of or from riding, or of or from ride, because you have the ride, but then you also have the vehicle that takes you on that ride. Just like you have the awl, that you have the hole or the bore or the incision or the piercing, and then you have the instrument that does the piercing or the incision, which is the needle used to deliver the microchip, which is the mark of the beast, into people's hands or into their foreheads, because they have Neuralace, Neuralink, and different other contraptions that they have that will connect, the average man to a computer data, and women also, children. All right. So now let's go back. Okay, so we heard that. We heard John Todd speaking about how they're planning on shutting everything down, shutting the cities down. And that's pretty much the times that we're coming into, because Jake has been too comfortable for too long. And it's now time for them to feel the pinch so they can start seeking after the Lord. But it's going to be late for a lot of them, too late for a lot of them. So we're in the case right now where we're going through a judgment phase, or, in this country and around the world, because the Lord is bringing the final screws, so to speak, before he actually cements this his plans and fulfills his prophecies. It says, Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. And we are now at the time of the end and of judgment to come. Ecclesiastes 8:6, it says, because to every purpose there is time and judgment, therefore the misery of man is great upon him. For he knoweth not that which shall be, for who can tell him when it shall be? So we're at the point that everything that we see under the sun has a purpose and a time of judgment. So we're at the time of judgment. So there's a time to be born and a time to die. We're in a time of death in this country and around the world. A time to plant and a time to pluck up. And we're in a time of plucking up. The Lord is about to do some plucking up, that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. We're in a time of killing. The Lord is is bringing death, to the world. Yahweh Bashem Shai is bringing death. He's not bringing healing. The only ones he's bringing healing to is to the nation of Israel that are part of the elect. Those are the ones that are being healed. A time to break down and a time to build up. And we're in the time of breaking down, because the Lord said he set up Jeremiah to what? To plant and to pluck up. To pluck up and to root out, because this system is being rooted out by what? By the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, as we read in the book of 2 Thessalonians. Let's go there real quick. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 8, to the point. And then shall that wicked be revealed, which this is the way that they're being uprooted, by the revelation of them being the wicked, of them being the devil, of them being the Edomites, of their society coming to an end, of them being that fourth beast that was about to be destroyed, that goeth into perdition. You know, that dragon with the 7 heads and 10 horns, the devil, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan. You know, this is the revelation. This is the revealing time. But the revealing time is just about up, because now we're going into the point where the prophecies of him starting to fall apart is happening and has been happening. Whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, which is what? The prophets. He said, I have hewed them down by the prophets. So this is the hewing down of this system verbally by the words of the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai. And now we're at the point where the Lord is starting to take action of his words and bringing them to a fulfilling. Because nothing can move until the words of Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai are fulfilled, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And then after enough exposure goes out, then what's going to happen is the Lord is going to bring the missiles and the chariots with Yahweh Shai and the angels to destroy this place. That's going to be the brightness of his coming. The splendor he's going to come in. The lasers that are going to be shot out of the chariots. The missiles that are going to be shot. The fire and the uproar and just the devastation. The earth rocking to and fro. You know, this is all a part of the brightness of his coming. Even him who's coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, because this is how they're able to push their agenda forward through their technology, which could be deemed in people's eyes as a miraculous technology, you know, that could heal you of diseases, that can have the blind to see, have the lame to walk, but not in the sense that Yahweh Shai did, because Yahweh Shai would say, would say your faith has healed thee, or he would make mud, you know, and put it in people's eyes, and they would be healed, or he would heal them of their leprosy from the virtue that was in him. But see, these devils are using witchcraft, you know, to heal people. Different drugs and different, you know, technology that the Lord gave them. And this is why the majority of people are deceived in the world. It says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause the Most High shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. And that's what's happening. That Jake, the 2/3 of Israel, are being blinded so that they can't receive this word, because the Most High has they already have a date with death, pretty much, a date with judgment and destruction. So going back to Ecclesiastes 3:3, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. So we're in the time of breaking down. So the Lord is systematically breaking this society down, but he's building up the tabernacles of David. So as one is going down, another one's coming up. When you go back into the history and you go back and you watch, or when you read about these different empires that came, when one empire was falling, another empire was rising. And when that empire totally fell, the other empire came in its place. And we're witnessing that right now with the fall of America. You know, America is falling, you know, and we're witnessing a change of worlds. We're witnessing the translation of the kingdom from Esau to us. Even though they're still in power, they you know, they still have their military and all that, but the Lord is systematically breaking them down. If your eyes are open, you can see that. Ecclesiastes 10:8, because of unrighteous dealings, did not they do that? Unrighteous dealings, injuries, they committed many injuries, and riches got by deceit. I mean, there should be one name here, Esau. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So there's a transitioning happening here. Yahweh Shai is slowly but surely, Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai is breaking this place down, and then Yahweh Shai is going to come and take over, because the kingdom is going to be handed over to him. He's coming to take the kingdom back from these devils. and restore it and set it up in righteousness as it should be. So that's the time we're in, the time of breaking down. It said a time to weep and a time to laugh. It's time for the world to weep, and it's a time for us to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. It's time for the world to mourn, and it's time for us to dance. I mean, we still got, the hardest parts to go through as far as, the tribulation. But for the most part, we're dancing and laughing because we see the fall of this place. And the Lord said that we're supposed to be laughing when this place falls. You apostles and servants of the Lord, we're supposed to be laughing at this calamity that's coming upon Esau. A time to cast away stones, which is what's happening now. A time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. And it's Esau's time to lose, and it's our time to get. And all that's happening is a transition of power, a transition of wealth and riches, which is the same thing. And that's what's happening. So we're going through that change, or that, as they say, metamorphosis, But right now, the Lord is breaking this place down. Pretty much the words of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai has Esau's empire in siege. The Most High has set a siege against Esau's empire by the mouth of his prophets. And the words of the Lord are beating down that wall. They built this wall. They built this, this facade. They built this great empire. And the words of the Lord are beating down those walls. They're beating down the gate. They're beating down Esau's towers. And they're falling. You see, and then the Lord eventually is going to come and just sweep it away. A time to keep and a time to cast away. It's time for this system to be cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. The Lord is rending and breaking this place apart. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. We're in a time of speaking, but then eventually the Lord is going to put a silence to this. Because then the Lord is going to move. Because once the Lord is finished speaking through the mouth of his prophets, then it's time for the judgment. It's time for the action. A time of love and a time of hate. And we're in a time of hate, serious hate. A time of war and a time of peace. And this is the time of war. Because the Lord is going to bring it. And you heard this guy, I'm not sure if it was on here, but he was speaking about also how they want to bring, that was another video I was watching. Dealing with World War III. Oh, there was this Irish chap. Brother had put that on his channel, GMS Ireland. I forget exactly the brother's channel. But there was this Irish chap that was going into that. How they want to bring in World War III. I believe that was the video I'm talking about. There's so many videos we watch, it's hard to keep track of every detail. But I know there was a video that pretty much was speaking on how they, with all this chaos that's going on, they want to bring in the World War III. And that World War III will bring an end to everything. They said they want to make a war between Iran and Israel and have some nuclear holocaust out there in the Middle East, bring World War III to have some type of nuclear devastation, and then to try to bring in the New World Order, which would be their form of giving peace to the world, but that's not going to happen. Revelation 12:12, therefore rejoice ye heavens and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And that's why they're in desperation mode now, trying to get this mark of the beast off, the microchip. And this is why now that so-called China is going back to normal. Now they're starting to put wristbands on people, which eventually will turn into the chip, because all that's in them wristband is nothing more than the RFID technology. No matter what you call it or whatever country it's in, it's the same shit. It's a buying and selling information and tracking and all that. That's the vehicle that they want to use through the boring instrument or the awl, which is the needle that puts in the mark of the beast into the flesh, that cuts into it, that incision. So pretty much, we could go on and on and on. I have here a list of executive orders, and these executive orders, it says the following executive orders now recorded in the Federal Register and therefore accepted by Congress as law of the land, can be put into effect at any time an emergency is declared. And that's what was being said in that video with the Irish chap. They had a scene from I forget the name of that series they used to have, X-Files, and you had the two individuals speaking, and the guy, the older dude, was saying, look, this is what the power of FEMA is. He said to be enacted in a time of a declaration of a national emergency, and that's pretty much what's happening, because the Constitution is, the suspending of the Constitution by the declaration of an emergency. So pretty much right now the Constitution is suspended, which it really hasn't been in effect for a long period of time, but it's really out of the way right now. It says 10995, all communications, media seized by the federal government, and you could read them for yourself. Seizure of all electrical power, fuels, including gasoline and minerals. Remember, John Todd said they want to cripple everything and shut everything down. 1099, a seizure of all food resources, farms and farm equipment. Seizure of all kinds of transportation, including your personal car, and control of all highways and seaports. There's nothing going to be flying. Remember, he said that the airports would be shut down and nothing but military helicopters and planes would be flying. Seizure of all civilians for work under federal supervision. Whatever they want you to do, breaking rocks, checking people for infections, whatever. It says federal takeover of all health, education, and welfare. Postmaster General empowered to register every man, woman, and child in the USA. This is why they're pushing that census. And notice that this whole thing is taking place in the year of the census. Which I didn't know it was the year of the census until Elder Pastor mentioned it. But then I remember I got something in the mail. I said, that's why they sent that. It says seizure of all aircraft and airports by the federal government. Housing and Finance Authority may shift population from one locality to another. Which is what? That's just the hoarding up of all the people and shipping them to wherever they want them to be. Complete integration. Seizure of railroads, inland waterways, and storage facilities. The director of the Office of the Emergency Planning authorized to put executive orders into effect in times of increased international tension or financial crisis. And now we coming to that. Is not that here? He is also to perform such additional functions as the president may direct. So pretty much all power has been given to the federal government, to FEMA. The Constitution is suspended. That's why they're mobilizing the National Guard all throughout, because the cities eventually are going to be shut down, as it says in 2nd Ezra's 15 and 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. So pretty much these cities are going to be shut down, and they're using this crisis to do that. So that's why, me personally, I don't see it going back to normal, but who knows? It might just go back to normal, because this is the perfect opportunity that they've been waiting for, because it's a worldwide thing. It's not just one city or two cities or a couple of states. It's the whole of the United States and the whole world. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. And this is why they have the National Guard there. That's the cover story. But really it's there to ship the American public into work brigades. As it says in Federal Executive Order 11,000, seizure of all civilians for work under federal supervision. You see? So that's what they're really there for, just to enforce these executive orders and to so-called keep the peace. But the men of the Lord are going to be straight, because it tells us in the book of 2nd Ezra 16 and just bear with me 1 second. '73. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. But the elect are going to be straight. Elect are going to be straight. Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. See? So pretty much, when this whole situation collapses and everything falls apart, the men of the Lord, the elect are going to be straight. The men, women, children, they're going to be straight because they are a part of the elect, and they have the angels of the Lord guiding and watching and protecting them. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. If the Spirit jump on me, I may do like a GMS on the go if the Spirit's still on me. I have still some other precepts from the lesson yesterday, which I may go through in another lesson, Lord's will, see how His Spirit flows. But with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say Shalom. To the federal government, to FEMA, the Constitution is suspended. That's why they're mobilizing the National Guard all throughout, because the cities eventually are going to be shut down, as it says in 2nd Ezra's 15 and 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city